Dr. Sandra Lee is one of the leading names in dermatology. For years, we've loved watching her solve the toughest skin issues on her hit show, Dr. Pimple Popper.
But during filming this season, things took a very serious turn when Dr. Lee suffered a stroke. We have an exclusive sneak peek.
She built a billion-view empire from other people's skin problems. But on one quiet November morning, Dr. Sandra Lee, the woman the world knew as Dr. Pimple Popper, stood in her own hallway, watched her hand collapse, and could not find the words to explain what was happening to her. A stroke at 55. While the cameras were still rolling, her father saw it before she did. And what came next? Nobody in her audience saw coming. The truth behind that morning and what it cost her is what we're uncovering today. Stay with us. The morning everything stopped. It started like any other workday. The cameras were set up. The crew was ready. Patients had traveled from all over California, hoping to finally fix something they had carried on their skin for years. Dr. Sandra Lee walked into skin physicians and surgeons in Upland, California, the same practice her father built decades ago, and did what she had done thousands of times before. She treated patients. She talked to cameras. She was Dr. Pimple Popper. But somewhere in the middle of that day, something shifted. She started sweating. Not the kind of light sweat that comes from a long day on your feet. This was sudden, overwhelming, a wave of heat that came from nowhere.
A viral influencer known as Dr. Pimple Popper is sharing her experience of a stroke she suffered while filming the show.
And made no sense. Her body felt wrong. Her head felt cloudy. But she was a surgeon, a professional. She had built her entire career on staying steady under pressure. So she told herself it was probably a hot flash. She pushed through. She finished the day. That evening, she drove to her parents' house near the practice. She could not settle down. One leg kept firing with shooting pains. She tried to ignore it. She tried to eat. She tried to rest. None of it worked. Walking down the stairs that night, something was off. Her balance was wrong. Her legs were not responding the way they should. She made it through the night without sleeping. The next morning brought the real fear. She held out her left hand and watched it slowly fold on its own. She opened her mouth to speak, and the words that came out were not the words she had meant to say. Slurred, disconnected, coming from somewhere she could not control. I noticed that I had a tough time articulating and just enunciating, she later told People magazine. I thought, am I having a stroke? Here is the part of this story that most headlines missed entirely. Sandra Lee is a physician. She went to medical school. She completed a residency. She has spent over 20 years treating patients. She knows the warning signs of stroke, the way most people know their own phone number. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, sudden confusion, balance problems. She had almost every single one, and she still almost talked herself out of going to the hospital. This is not a failure of intelligence or training. Researchers have documented this pattern for years. Women experiencing strokes are far more likely to dismiss their own symptoms and to have those symptoms dismissed by others because they so often look like something else entirely. Sudden, sweating, fatigue, restlessness. In a woman in her mid-50s, those signs get explained away as menopause, almost every time. Sandra Lee's brain had exactly that instinct. Hot flash. Probably nothing serious. Her brain was already dying. Her father, Dr. Soon Sang Lee, a retired dermatologist who built the very practice she now runs, was in the house that morning. He looked at his daughter. He did not hesitate for a single second. He told her to get to the emergency room immediately. She went. The moment she walked through those hospital doors, The story of Dr. Pimple Popper changed forever. What? The MRI found. The results came back and left no room for doubt. Sandra Lee had suffered a full ischemic stroke. A blood clot had cut off blood supply to part of her brain, starving millions of cells of oxygen. Every minute a stroke goes untreated, the brain loses approximately 2 million cells. There is no reversing that. Those cells do not return. It was just a shock, she told people. As a physician, I couldn't deny that I had slurred speech, that I was having weakness on one side, but I was like, well, this is a dream, right? Then she said something that stopped every room it entered. What essentially happened is, I had a part of my brain that died.
It was just a shock. What essentially happened is I had a part of my brain that died.
For most people, hearing a doctor describe her own stroke in those words is already difficult. But understand what this specifically meant for Sandra Lee. Her entire career is built on her hands, her eyes, her voice, the precision that lets her remove a decades-old cyst without leaving a scar. The steady, calm way she narrates a procedure while her patient lies on the table trusting her completely. The stroke attacked all of it at once. She listed her own risk factors without being asked. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, chronic stress. All three were present. All three were, by her own admission, not under control at the time. Her neurologist, Dr. May Kim Tenser, of USC's Keck Medical School, provided the wider picture. Doctors are now seeing nearly a 15% increase in stroke rates among patients between the ages of 45 and 64. Sandra Lee, at 55, falls directly in the center of that range. This is not a story about bad luck. It is a story about a generation of high-performing people, particularly women, running their bodies past every warning sign for years, treating health as something to deal with later, and then facing a moment when later is no longer an option. Filming on Season 2 of Dr. Pimple Popper, Breaking Out stopped immediately. 20 planned episodes, a brand new show on Lifetime. All of it halted on a November morning in 2025. Because the woman who spent her career fixing other people forgot to pay attention to herself, where she came from. To understand what Sandra Lee stood to lose, you have to go back to a borrowed book in a rural clinic in Malaysia in the late 1960s. Dr. Soon Seng Lee had come from almost nothing. He grew up in Singapore as one of 10 children. His wife Irene grew up in Malaysia, also one of 10 children in a family with very little. They met, they studied, and they built a life through sheer determination. By the time Soon Seng was working as a general medical officer in rural Malaysia, he was competent in most areas of medicine, but skin diseases stumped him completely. Every single time. His solution became the foundation of everything that came after. Behind a privacy curtain in his clinic, there was a small book on skin diseases left behind by a U.S. Care Medico team. Every time a skin condition walked through the door, he slipped behind that curtain and looked it up. The more he read, the more his interest grew until he made a decision. He would become a dermatologist. Soon Seng and Irene emigrated to the United States in 1969. Sandra was born in Flushing, Queens in December 1970, just 1 year after her parents arrived in a country where they knew almost no one and had almost nothing. When Sandra was 5, the family moved to Southern California. Her father opened Skin Physicians and Surgeons in Upland, California, the same practice Sandra runs today, more than 4 decades later. She grew up surrounded by dermatology, medical textbooks everywhere, photographs of skin conditions on coffee tables that would have horrified most children. Sandra was not horrified. She studied biology at UCLA, completed medical school at Hahnemann University in Philadelphia, and met her future husband, Jeffrey Rebish, on the very first day of orientation. Jeff had played sports at Dartmouth and arrived at medical school thinking about orthopedic surgery. Sandra changed his direction. He followed her into dermatology. They married in 2000. But the path was not smooth. After her 4th year of medical school, Sandra did not match into a dermatology residency, the specialty her father had chosen because of a borrowed book, the field she had been raised inside. She did not get in. "You feel like you're in a dream," she said years later. "Is this really happening? I even considered emergency medicine for the blink of an eye." She eventually matched at Southern Illinois University, completed a fellowship in San Diego under renowned laser surgeon Dr. Richard Fitzpatrick, and returned to California to take over her father's practice. Her father's reaction to what happened next was perfectly human. "I used to hear patients remark that, 'Oh, you are Dr. Soon Lee's daughter,'" he said. "Now I only hear, 'Oh, you are Dr. Sandra Lee's father.'" 6 billion views and the price of fame. In October 2010, Sandra Lee created a YouTube channel. The first videos were dry, professional, and almost no one watched them. For 4 years, the channel sat largely unused, more of a digital business card than anything else. Then, in 2014, she posted a blackhead extraction on Instagram. It went viral overnight.
I know that you've watched me squeeze out thousands of blackheads and whiteheads here on my YouTube channel, but I know that many of you guys suffer from acne yourself.
She had been watching a hairstylist rack up millions of views by simply showing hair treatments on camera. She asked herself a quiet question: could she do this? Dermatology, after all, is an extremely visual field. She started posting. People could not stop watching. By 2015, she was uploading extraction videos to YouTube regularly under the name Dr. Pimple Popper. Her most watched single video, a giant blackhead being extracted from an 85-year-old woman, has been viewed over 75 million times. Her business model was simple and effective. Patients received discounted or free treatment in exchange for written permission to be filmed. Everyone left satisfied. When TLC came calling in 2018, a television show was inevitable. Dr. Pimple Popper premiered on the 11th of July 2018, became the top-rated cable program in its time slot among women aged 25 to 54, and ran for 9 seasons and 111 episodes. She won the Critics' Choice Real TV Award for Female Star of the Year 3 consecutive times. She launched SLMD Skincare.
Hello and welcome to my new SLMD Skincare YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Sandra Lee, but many of you guys know me from my social media and my TV show as Dr. Pimple Popper,
which expanded into over 1,600 Target stores across the United States. She wrote a book. She appeared on late-night television. At her peak, her YouTube channel was generating close to $100,000 a month. When TLC ended the show in 2023, she did not stop. She moved to Lifetime with Dr. Pimple Popper, breaking out. Season 2 was greenlit in August 2025 with 20 new episodes. Jeffrey had become an executive producer. The machine was running faster than it ever had. And that was exactly the problem. For 2 full months after the stroke, Sandra Lee did not operate. From November 2025 through January 2026, she went through intensive physical and occupational therapy. The work was basic in the way that only the most essential things are basic. Balance, walking in a straight line, rebuilding grip strength in her left hand. For most people, weakened grip is an inconvenience. For Sandra Lee, It was a direct threat to her ability to do the only work she had ever wanted to do. Dermatological procedures require fine motor control, steady hands, precise, consistent movement with instruments that have very little margin for error. "I don't like that. I don't have total control of my left hand," she said. "If I feel like I'm not at my best, it's very scary." Her speech changed too, in ways she says most people cannot detect, but that she notices every single time she opens her mouth. You're really embarrassed to speak because you notice it. For a woman who has spent years talking to cameras in front of millions of people, that self-consciousness is entirely new. In January 2026, she returned to the set. She walked back into the same building, the same operating room, the same cameras, the same environment where her brain started dying. It was very scary for me. There's a lot of PTSD because it happened while I was filming the show. A stroke does not disappear cleanly. Dead brain cells do not come back. For the first time in her professional life, Sandra Lee was standing in front of something she could not fix. She had to live with it instead. What she did not have to say. She could have kept all of this private. The stroke happened in November 2025. She returned to work in January 2026. Nobody outside her immediate circle knew. Episodes were being filmed. Patients were being seen. The world had no idea anything had happened. She could have let Season 2 air and let viewers figure it out on their own. Instead, she chose People magazine. An exclusive interview published the 14th of April 2026. A full account of everything. And in that same interview, she explained why going public was so hard. In Asian cultures in particular, they don't tell people they've had a stroke because it can be seen as a sign of weakness. That sentence is the most important one, she said in the entire interview, and it got the least attention. Sandra Lee is Chinese, American. Her father is from Singapore. Her mother is from Malaysia. She was raised inside a culture that values staying strong quietly, treats illness as a private matter, and sees public vulnerability as personal failure. The immigrant drive that carried her parents to a new country, that pushed her through medical school and a failed residency match and back again, runs directly against the kind of openness she chose in that interview. In breaking that silence, she went against everything her upbringing told her a strong person does when something goes wrong. She did it anyway. I want to get the word out that if you have symptoms like I had, make sure you see your doctor. Take care of yourself. The timing was deliberate. She went public 6 days before Season 2 premiered on Lifetime on the 20th of April 2026. The show includes actual footage from the day of her stroke and her recovery. By speaking first, she controlled how the story got told. She chose to make her worst moment into a conversation rather than a spectacle. What the stroke actually gave her. When Sandra Lee calls the stroke a blessing in disguise, she does not say it the way people say it when they are trying to find something good to hold on to. She says it the way a doctor describes a diagnosis, plainly, as a fact she has already looked at from every angle. I want to think about it as a blessing in disguise, because it reminds you to take better care of yourself. For years, the machine that is Sandra Lee ran without maintenance, a full surgical practice, a YouTube channel needing constant new content, 9 seasons of television, a skincare brand, all of it running at once, all of it urgent, none of it slowing down. She was treating the warning signs, the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the chronic stress, as things she would deal with eventually. She was always about to slow down. She just never actually did. The stroke ended that completely. 2 months of physical therapy, blood thinners every day,
Dr. Lee's stroke was so recent. Right now is the most valuable time for therapy to retrain the brain and reconnect that brain and body. All right, let's go ahead and prop that hand up. Now you're gonna work on that digit opposition.
Home exercises before bed, regular monitoring of the numbers she had been ignoring for years. A pace that is slower than before, not because she chose it, but because her body finally forced the issue. And in that forced slowdown, something she had not expected arrived. Clarity. It really makes you realize how precious life is. She is back on screen. Season 2 of Dr. Pimple Popper, Breaking Out, is airing on Lifetime, starting the 20th of April 2026. 20 new episodes. Her hands are working. Her voice is close to what it was. Her neurologist says her symptoms are mostly resolved. But the full weight of this story sits in a detail no headline fully captured. Her father discovered dermatology from a borrowed book behind a privacy curtain in rural Malaysia. He came to America with almost nothing, built a practice from zero, and raised a daughter inside that practice who would become the most watched dermatologist in human history. Sandra Lee spent decades helping millions of people feel better about themselves. She gave them her hands, her voice, her time, and her camera. She built an empire out of honesty and trust. But the most honest thing she ever did was walk out of that hospital, sit down in front of a journalist, and tell the truth about what happened to her own body, knowing exactly what her culture said about doing that. If her story makes even one person check their blood pressure, call their doctor, or pay attention to a warning sign they were about to ignore, then the most painful chapter of her life becomes its most important one. If this story hit different for you, drop a comment below and tell us what you took from it. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real, in-depth stories like this. One new videos every week. We will see you in the next one.